follow this agenda more closely. So we'll start with the welcome of the guests. And Ms. Mayor, thank you for being here. Everybody else is normal. Here. Mr. McLean. Here. Mr. Johnson. Present. And Jones. Present. And myself present. So that's a roll call, I think. And I need a motion, please, to approve.
Oh, no.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second. Go ahead. Thanks for
Further
the
discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So I'll start now with my comments and welcome to everybody and thank you for coming out. Thank you for serving your airport and thank you for doing such a beautiful, beautiful job. And our airport really a pretty place and doing real well, Mr. Deere. Thank you for all your excellent management. I have a little quote from Henry Ford that I thought was very fitting today. It says, when everything seems to be going against you, remember that an aircraft takes off against the wind, not with it. And it has a lot of good meaning for us, especially those of us that love to fly, and we also have to apply those same principles in life so often. And thank you to our city. Mr. Holmes, thank you for your management all these last several years of city manager. And we're going to hate to see you leave that position. But I do say thank you for what you've done. And of course, in 20 to 30 years before that being city attorney. So you've had a big role. About 30. Well, but you've had a big role. Welcome, sir.
They've got a plan put together so they just keep extending in 30 days, 30 days, 30 days, 30 days. Wouldn't be long.
Well, I know you cooperated.
Didn't have a choice.
But anyhow, thank you, sir, for all your help at this airport. It's so beautiful. And every one of you around this table could say the same words. But when we look at what's happened in the last 2, 10, 20, 30 years, it's just amazing, the growth and the change. And as we keep going forward, we're going to see better things happen. So anyhow, thank you very much. And I'll hush with my comments. Next on the agenda is public comments. And are there any speakers that would like to? I think we have, is it on the agenda?
It's not on there.
Okay, so we do have a public comment about AOPA.
So, my name is Rick Cunningham. I'm a tenant here at the airport. Customer. And Mr. McNair asked me to give you a little talk to you about an AOPA program. And it's a AOPA Airport Airport Support Network. Okay, AOPA is Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. And it is the largest type organization in the world. 380,000 people. Well, they have vast resources. It used to be before the pandemic, it was up in the 400. So anyway, so the Airport Support Network, the goal is to keep public airports open for pilots, providing resources to help the management do that. Okay, they have access to lawyers, architects, government, politicians, run the whole gamut. And they use those resources to help you solve issues that may be there. They've been doing this for 25 years, solving problems such as.
Thank you.
No.
No, I think you're supposed to be seeing. There you go.
Okay. They've been doing this for 25 years to help solve problems at airports such as noise, when neighborhoods are complaining about noise, towers, runway extensions, subdivisions encroaching before they get too started. So when somebody sees something, they notify this network and they provide you with 25 years of experience in how they solve the problem. They won't solve it for you. They don't act as lawyers, but they'll tell you what the lawyers say and have said in the past. Okay, like, and one of the big ones now is in California with the 100 low lead criteria. They're working hard on that, providing what they can. Okay, so. There's another segment to this thing, which is volunteer. And the goal for volunteer is to have one on every airport, every municipal, not municipal, every public airport in the United States. Currently, there's about 2,300 volunteers. Incidentally, Hugh Rawls was a volunteer for 28J. I don't know how active it was because he and I never talked about it, but just the same. And the purpose of the volunteer is to act as a go-between between management, provide the sort of contacts with the AOPA and this type of thing. But it works both ways. If there's a problem here, we can go through the AOPA and solve the problem. But if the AOPA sees new regulations, new legislations where you need to head things off, they provide information back. Okay. And as a volunteer on the airport, my big bailiwick is safety. I've had the good fortune of being able to spot potential problems throughout my history and flying. So I'm keen on safety, but there's other aspects of it because you're supposed to observe how we're being built. We didn't know about it, that type of thing. And it's a way to interact with management. And I walk around the airport and I listen to what people have to say on the airport. And if there's something that doesn't sound right, then I can take that to management and they can do what they want with the thing. So thank you for all you normal people's time. I hope I haven't exceeded 3 minutes. I was going to ask you to drop the gavel if I did, but you didn't. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service. Is there any other speakers? Yes, sir.
Just a brief comment. I've gone to Sun and Fun and talked to multiple people, and one person in particular was a mayor of Heights. And he says, yeah, I always fly down to Palatka and I get in the car and we go to a restaurant by there. And I told him, well, the car is no longer available. He said, well, I won't be back. And I about the place that happened when we go to a place they did not have crew cars. Probably not. I just want to pass that along to maybe have it as a future agenda item to be done and needs to be considered if you want this airport to.
Thank you.
Your name for the camera, please.
Name is Richard Nelson, a customer of the airport.
There you go.
I've been here, but it seems to be that way.
He has a plane, he flies in and out of here all the time. All right, any other public comments? I think that's it. Okay, well, then we will move on our agenda to number.
I mean, I have a question. What's the purpose of is
To take Hugh Rawls' place for AOPA representative to 28J.
so we just did that?
We just did that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Actually,
Yeah, sure.
AOPA did that. The organization did that.
Yeah, AOPA, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association.
Or we were informed of it this morning.
Exactly.
That's correct.
Okay. I consider myself informed,
Thank you, sir.
and congratulations.
Yes.
And thank
Or
you.
condolences.
And thank you.
And thank you.
Right here, block.
It's a very serious thing to me.
It is.
Thought it'd be a good courtesy for our body to know that you'll be taken. Yeah.
It's nice to know things.
Okay, I think you're up.
Briefly, and then we'll turn it over to our partners, Sarah. So each year, we sit down with FDOT as well as FAA and review our capital program. Each year, it gives us an opportunity to reprioritize, really kind of stay abreast to what are the different changes coming up and shifting our attention to those different changes. This year, as in previous years, we have an overview of our overall 5-year capital program that our partner, Sarah, will be providing this body. Typically, this process is the first step in understanding what's really going on in the airport from a 5-year program standpoint. And from this point, we'll take a next step of having a similar presentation as well as, I guess, approval from the city commission level. So that being said, Andrew.
Thanks, Joe. So a few more things, a little bit of background about what's created and how we get to this point. Every year, Florida DOT district staff, Kyle and Donna, request a meeting with all of the airports in Northeast Florida and DOT to review the work program that they have identified. Are the projects going to stay exactly the same? Are they going to move around a little bit? And typically around a little bit at every single airport, because we represent multiple airports here in the district, and it's very, very common. The FAA sits in on the meeting with the DOT to hear what's going on, but it's a DOT meeting. Then there's another meeting where the FAA does the same thing, where the FAA talks about what they're going to program for the next 2 or 3 years, and the DOT sits in, but they're not heavy participants. So this is the results of the FDOT meeting. It's not the project, but it's the DOT type projects. 2 big differences between FDOT funding and FAA funding is that FDOT has a 6-year work program, and they give you the dollars inside any specific year, and that's the dollars that you have to do your project, and they don't change. Which means if they put $1 million in the box and you design and open bids for a project that's $2 million, you don't get $2 million, you only get 1. You have to either make the project work for the DOT money that they offer, or you reduce the size, but they're not going to give you the additional money. The FAA is the exact opposite. The FAA says, tell us how much you think the project's going to be. It could be this $1 million project. And when you open the bid, if you open a bid with the FAA, instead of it being 1 million, it was 1.25 million, they would say, we'll give you the 1.25 million, because they don't assign their projects to the exact amount every year until you open the bid. So those are two big nuances in the programs that we have to juggle it all the time to try and make the projects and the budgets fit. Some of the projects that are up here also are a combined funding source between the FAA and the DOT, which means we're juggling both those balls, both arenas. But we do it all the time, every year. When we sit in the meeting, I'm not sure what the date was, Yule, but there was 10 people in the meeting. So the things that you're going to see on screen, there was a lot of things discussed with a lot of people. And I'm going to get up behind the 2 of you and go up to the big board here and use my little pen as my pointer, because I want to take you through the CIP. And it's kind of important to look at the different components. So,
Could you slide the cookies to the desk, please?
They're very good. I'm thinking there's only another.
Let
me sneak in here, so. Okay.
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 What you need? Thank you.
I'm waiting for the cookies to get discouraged and give everybody. To get switch.
Yes, I was thinking Mr. Holmes.
Well,
All right,
and I'll just say one more thing before I get started, and that is if I say anything incorrectly, it's actually Matt that'll give me the hook, because Matt is absolutely the mastermind behind the CIP. He's the one that makes sure all the money is in the right place with the FDOT and the FAA. He's the one who does all of your grants and things like that I used to do, but he is really the PM and the person that makes sure that every dollar is in exactly the right place. So he's a huge part of that too.
I think Matt, you do a great job.
Yeah, he'll give me the hook or give me the buzz if I say anything wrong. So, okay, so this spreadsheet, this actually comes directly from the DOT. They give us this before the meeting, and it doesn't have any color on it when we start, but it does now. We've got the projects on the left. We've got all the years and the dollars. All the items in red are added by us, and the yellow is added by us. So any project that has a yellow highlight, which means something was changed. And if you see any dollars shown in red, that means that the dollars were changed. And I'm going to start at the bottom and then we'll go all the way down. Okay, so first project, design and construct a new corporate hangar. We're gonna get a new corporate hangar and Yule is pumped up because we think that we're finally gonna get what we have been talking about for years. I think you've all heard this term. I call it the Palatka Jet Center. Okay, and I'm not sure if that's gonna be the right name on the building, but we're gonna build a very nice hangar due east of where we're sitting here right now. So the original funding for that was $750,000 from the state and $750,000 from the city. It's a revenue producing project, which means it has a standard 50-50 share. But since Putnam County is a ready county for Florida DOT, we can get it as a 100% funded project. So the city share can actually be zero and the state will still give us the 750. So we have that 750 and then we have a red 300,000 on top. We know we can't do enough with 750,000 to do anywhere near the type of hangar that we think we need to build. So we're going to take the 750,000 in the current year. We're going to have an addition of $300,000 in red, which is coming from a different project, the 600,000 down below. And next year, the DOT is also going to add another 800,000. So we're going to have 750,000 plus 300 plus 800,000. We will start the design later this year on a $1.85 million, 100% funded hangar that will go right to the east. That's what we all talked about and agreed on how we make that money. I'm guessing everybody's going to think that's a pretty good idea to have because we have no big open hangar to support anybody for overnight and things like that. So it's the other piece that's missing. It's also the reason why we have the open field next to us. And we did not continue to build T hangars all the way down to the terminal. That field is waiting for this exact project. It has been ever since we did this in 2008. Project 2 is the environmental assessment for the runway extension of 927 to the west. It's an outer year fund. So in 2026, DOT has $300,000 slated for the project. The city share is $75,000. Again, that can be waived and we can do a $300,000 project for the environmental review in 2026 and 27 for the runway extension to the west. There are no changes. Everything is black and everything is agreed upon at that point. Yes, sir.
May I, Mr. Chairman? So, we had talked, I think John Browning had brought it up. I'm sorry, John, to throw your name in there. So there's no way to move that up?
Yes. There's another project coming down at the end and I'm not going to tell you to hold your questions, Wayne, but we're going to talk. No. Okay. I'll just tell you right now. We're going to jump ahead, okay? Everybody look down to the $100,000 planning study in 2024. So after July 1st of this year, third project from the bottom, there's $100,000 in there. That's the initial feasibility study for the runway extension. So there's actually multiple projects for the runway extension. There's $100,000 here.
Good.
There's an environmental assessment in 2026. There's the actual construction of the runway extension in 2027 and environmental in 2028. So the runway extension actually has 4 separate projects. The planning study, the environmental permitting, and the construction. So there's 4 different pieces already in the CIP, all up here for the DOT.
Why don't you put them all together so people like me that have another page to see it, so.
Andrew, in the future, you'll save yourself time when you begin your presentation. If you'll just tell Wayne to hold his question for the right up front.
So,
I understand.
so that the sequence that you have up there in funding is a sequence we need to extend that runway?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The first thing is very, very quickly coming is the feasibility study to show Florida DOT why we need the runway extension. That's going to get funded this fall. So that's going to be underway in 23 and 24.
So will the FAA take the feasibility study results into consideration when funding comes around for the extension of the runway?
Yes, and there is actually FAA funding shown here in 2027.
Okay.
But it has to be feasibility, environmental, and then permitting and construction. It has to be in that order. Feasibility, then environmental, And then you can design and construct.
Andrew, since he's asking questions and just broken your whole train. of
You're good.
thought.
Used to it all the
The
time.
way you had this continuity thing.
Used to it all the time.
It's all blown now, so. Did we ever get any clarity on who could prepare the feasibility study?
We do have clarity on the feasibility study. It's not going to be an easy task. What we hear from Florida DOT District 2 is that they're going to use their independent aviation consultant working for the state of Florida to review the feasibility study and its contents. So in addition to what the airport and what Passero put inside the feasibility study, there will be an independent consultant. It will not be a state employee. So they'll basically hire someone just like Passero to review Passero's work.
Still stuck on the deal about not being able to use projected.
They are. We sent some correspondence to the DOT last year to talk about the scope of the feasibility study. And the big question was, can we just use the existing operations of aircraft that need a 6,000-foot runway today? Or can we determine what users wish they could come to Palatka if we had 7,000 or 7,500 feet? So can we find those aviation users out there? That's one part. The second part is, can we talk with local major businesses and ask them that same question and find out who they do business with, to find out if we had 7,000 or 7,500 feet, who of those operators would come to Palatka? Because there are some aircraft that they simply don't come here and they're not a number because the runway isn't here. So can we grab that other potential? And in writing, the DOT came back and said, no, cannot use that potential. So we're going to have to massage that in some way and try and determine. I still think we have to know that. I think that still should be a part of the study to find out, is there demand that's going to St. Augustine? Is it going to Gainesville? Is it going to Flagler? Is it going to Cecil Field? Where else could it be going? To the larger airports? We're still going to do that task because we think is a relevant part of the task. And I think all that's going to become a part of the discussion, because we all know and we all agree, we don't have 500 operations today, which is the magic number to extend the runway. We don't have that. Everybody knows that, but we're still going to do the feasibility study, and we're going to do the very best we can to try and justify it, to get to that 500 number. And I think some of it's going to be potential, and then it's going to be put back in the DOT hands and their consultants' hands to say, is it valid or not? That's how we would approach the study. Doesn't matter what airport we were working for. If we were in the same situation anywhere in any of the states where we work, we'd say the same thing. It's who's coming here today and what else can you document that you know. Is there somebody that would say, absolutely, I fly and land in St. Augustine 20 times a year because I can't get into Palatka. We want to know. That'll be a part of the study.
Any other questions? Kristen?
I think the questions have all been answered. Thank you. for allowing-
Do we know who's on? Do we know who's on video? Is Kyle on?
Give me a second, I'll stop sharing just to see. And he hasn't popped out.
She's looking, Mr. Chairman, in all seriousness, this
Probably
is
should have.
a project for this airport for our future.
Didn't know if Kyle was on from DOT to add any more. But again, we've had this very specific discussion, and I followed up in writing with him because I needed that to be established, the parameters of the feasibility study. He came back with that response, and we'll see where it goes. So it's not stopping us.
Would those dollars build that project today?
The dollars we have shown, I think there's about 8 million between the environmental and this. So there's about 8 million there. It'll be close. We don't know the amount of wetland permitting that's going to be needed, but it's going to be millions. The entire area from the runway, just past the runway, 1,000 feet from the runway, all the way up to 309C is wet. It just is. We all know that it's wet. If you don't drive on the Lime Rock access road that gets you to the gate, because I've been out there, you get off that road, you better have 4-wheel drive and be ready to make a phone call if you need to, because it is wet. And we know that's going to be a big part of it. So is it exactly that amount? No, but it's getting us in the right area that we need to be. It's not going to be 3 times that amount or anything like that. It'll be in that vicinity. But if somebody asked us today, me and Matt, what is the number? It's a $10 million project.
And Andrew, I know we talked about this before, but who owns that land beyond there? And is it safe? That it's not going to be developed? For a while?
Other side of 309 State,
Warehouse owns it.
the west side.
Yes. Good warehouse. Say that again?
The development authority, Putnam County Development Authority owns 40 acres. Now it's a separate entity in the county's port authority. Putnam Hauser owns the immediate, what they call it, the crush,
The running protection zone.
and we're off to the right of it for the development.
The only real contact that we've had out there is actually with Clay Electric about the power lines. So we've had some contact with Clay Electric about the power lines and, you know, what is the feasibility to lower them or put them underground, which we would like to do. And their basic opinion, this is several years ago, wasn't anything formal, but it was simply, can they be lowered and can they be put underground? Yes. If you want to do it and you want to pay for it, we'll work with you the details of how to make that happen. So
And there was a lot of conversation about development of a business park at the time, years ago, when we got the 40 acres for the development authority. For that whole piece, but in that same time frame, Plum Creek sold all their holdings to warehouse. We're trying to run them down now to see their intentional to use for that, because we have a potential buyer for the 40 acre.
What is the distance between the end of our runway now currently and 309 C, do you know? 309 C.
around 3,500 feet.
And we need to make sure that we recommend to the county not to sell the part that might have to be used to extend the runway. Because if it's time for economic development.
They're gonna want to do it. That's right. They're
It's
gonna-
not the county that owns it. It's not the county's port authority. Warehouser owns most of it.
I'm not,
The other one is the 40 acres development authority. It's way out to the right.
we need to see who owns,
Yeah, let's just make a note to go on
Okay.
let's see. who owns how
the major
long
parcels right on center line.
that could be in the. Sure. Off the end, you think they'll have to be. It's a crap, they build pretty close to the ends of these runways.
No, we can, but you still really wouldn't want any immediate building development right on center line, even on the west side of 309C. Not a good idea. We'd just like to keep this straight on buffer. Well, Matt's gonna find out. We're gonna,
Your house.
it's actually not even on the aerial. Yeah, it is.
It's 600 acres owned by Warehouser and 40 owned by the.
If you have a 1,500 acre extension, then you still have 2,000 feet from the end of the runway to 309 C then.
Mhm. And we need 1,000 foot of that for a safety area.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep us going because I know we have a time constraint. Wayne, thank you for helping me knock off 4 projects in one. 4 projects in one.
Always got your back.
Okay. Coming down, we have the environmental for the runway extension. Beneath that, we have a $575,000, 100% FDOT funded obstruction removal, tree removal project. We're gonna go on the east end of the runway. We're probably gonna knock down some more trees that are already growing up on the south side of 927 and some of the approach on the west end. So very common. It's a good number to go out there and do. We actually already have our permits in place. I think Matt, still from the last time we did it. So we'll put together something, all 4 runway ends, take down whatever trees are encroaching in any way. Next project after that is actually a land acquisition project, all voluntary. There's a segment of the runway protection zone on the east end and the approach to 27 right here along Route 100. We constantly have a challenge on the tall trees. We're going to determine who and those parcels that are in the runway protection zone voluntarily would like to either sell an easement, the back piece of their parcel, or their entire parcel to the city for the airport. And the money will go to whoever that is. We'll determine who that can be. It can be an easement to allow us to cut trees. They can purchase the entire parcel, or we can just take the back half and they can keep the Route 100 frontage. All that would be fine. We'll just put together some plan to make that work. But we need to get control of that runway protection zone. It's the only area that we don't have.
Yeah, I looked it up, warehouse does on all of it. I think.
Thank you, John.
A lot of it, so, but they're easier to deal with than most. They're strictly money.
Yeah, and they haven't shown any indication of interest in a
No,
business park like
most of
Plum
them
Creek
are.
did.
They don't develop too much long term. That's good to know. They probably want to touch, at least touch base. with them.
But on the piece to the right that's owned by the Development Authority, I currently have in my hand a letter of intent to purchase that 40 acres. So y'all need to answer me
way
pretty
off.
quick. It's
I guess we
it's
just think-
off to the right on the power line.
It's way off.
If anything,
When you
that's
say right, what direction are you talking about?
north, I'm guessing north.
Yeah.
Again, that's any type of commercial development, industrial development out there should be nothing but favorable to us. We'd rather have it developed in that manner anyway. Favorable. As long as it's not residential. It doesn't create any wildlife hazard. Commercial and industrial is good. Okay. Next project after that is 2026, again, which is really just 2 years away. If you remember, a few years ago, we made a question, Palatka actually made a very good request to DOT that a lot of other airports in Northeast Florida wanted to know. And that is, over the useful life of buildings on the airport, even buildings that are constantly maintained by the city, there are times that major components need to be addressed. And they need a significant overhaul. The building is not ready to be torn down. The building still has useful life, but the two things we want to be able to replace are the hangar door systems and the roof. So we've made a specific comment to DOT. Can we do that with DOT money? It went all the way to Tallahassee and came back and said, as long as it is a significant rehabilitation of the building components, the answer is yes. So in 2026, you're gonna get 600,000, 100% funded. And if anything, we're gonna have to work harder to figure out which ones we're gonna do. Which doors are we gonna do and which roofs are we gonna do? But it's gonna be a really good, important thing for the airport to have that amount of money coming in to do roof and doors on hangars.
No
Yeah.
problem to worry about.
Yep.
We need it. That's for sure.
Next project coming down in 2025 is an airport master plan update. I can't believe because so many, right? Raise your hand if you were with the last master plan. Come on, it's a lot of you here in the room. Jonathan, weren't you with that? Uh-oh. I mean, I just still remember it so clearly, but I think it was 2012 and 2013. So it's actually 10 years ago that we did the airport master plan update. It's time to simply do it again. Things have changed here very much. So we'll go through the planning process. And again, look, 360 degrees around the airport. It is. You can see a lot of changes here since then, and they will continue between now and then, but we'll do an airport master plan and look at everything on the airfield and everything on the airport and surrounding the airport. After that is entrance road money. We had the entrance road coming in on the piece of land that the city acquired to the east of where we are. When we looked into it, we found out some of the DOT requirements and the center line cut, and there's no immediate usage proposed yet right there, right now for those funds. So what we did is, and this is why it's highlighted in yellow, we took that 600,000 and we said, that is still a valid project. So we said, hey, DOT, in 2029, give us those funds back again in 2029, and we need $1 million. And that's just a rough estimate in 2029. We're not ready today, but we could be in 5 years to really build that road. So to take that $600,000, we put 300,000 up here for the hangar, which is immediate need. And then we're taking 100,000. We're going to use it to pay the non-FA share of the improvement and repaving of all the T-hangar taxiways and fueling apron. Because there's an FA grant and there is a local share. We want the DOT to pay it all. So we're putting 100,000 towards that. We're putting 100,000 to repave the apron in front of W1, W2, and W3, which are not FA eligible, which would mean you could literally come up to the West Hangars, come down a beautiful taxi lane and have a hangar with 30-year-old pavement in front of it for a 50-foot section. We're like, no, the FA won't pay for it. So we're gonna have the DOT pay for it. And we can clip that out and so the whole thing is done. We don't have an old piece of pavement in front of a brand new taxi lane. And the third 100,000, Yule wants to do a very well needed gate and camera improvement on the three main gates at the airport, which are over near the old terminal building, heading towards Sky by Palatka, and the gate on Moody Road. We need them all to be operating brand new. They need new operators. We're probably going to have some new Wi-Fi systems, some new intercoms. We don't need full sections of fencing. Actually, the gates are actually in good condition. We'll recondition all the rolling systems, but it's actually the operator and the communication systems that all need to be upgraded. And all that'll be very, very simple. We'll finally get some form of radio transmitter over on the Moody Road gate, so it can actually communicate by radio all the way over here from Moody Road. I've never had that in the past. That's great. Yeah. So that's where the 6,000 went. 300 there, 1, 2, 3 there. Next project is tax lane apron pavement north. Matt, what's that? Is that DOT money that we're getting from the FAA? Is that right?
So originally, the project we're talking about, the west
Yeah.
taxi lanes and fuel apron, was programmed by DOT in 2025. That project got moved up, so now this entry is being deleted, and that
Got
800
it.
is going up top to the jet center.
So on this, we did not know that the FAA was going to provide basically, what's our estimate of that?
For construction is over here,
Yeah.
about a total about.
Okay, so we're gonna do $1 million of repaving from the fueling apron and all the T hangers back in the west. And honestly, we did not know that the FAA was going to fund that $1 million. So if they didn't, we would have had this $1 million here from DOT to do it. But since the FAA was doing it, that allows us to free up this 800,000 from the DOT and put it up there to the Palatka Jet Center. Good? Good?
Very good.
Okay. Next is wildlife hazard assessment. There was a requirement a few years back, especially for general aviation airports with business jet category activity like we have here, to do a big study. It's been reduced a little bit, but there still is a need for us to have a specialized firm come out here and do a wildlife hazard site visit, monitoring on the airport, and give us a bunch of recommendations on what they think we can do to stop deer, turkey, and hogs from getting on the airport. Again, it might sound very similar to a lot of people, but we have to follow the specific FAA procedure and get that consultant to come out and do it. Bring it on. But DOT is paying it 100% with that 25,000. It's a $25,000 study. Next one after that is permitting and mitigation for the wetlands for the runway extension, popping out to 2028. Below that is the $100,000 runway extension feasibility study in 2024, which is going to come very quickly. Literally the next 6 months, we'll get that grant from DOT. Beneath that is a $600,000 FDOT and $150,000 city share for some type of wildlife improvement. We don't know what that is yet. That will come out of the wildlife study. They might tell us to go actually take some of the security fencing in the western quadrant and literally bury it and trench it in the ground or other things. I don't know what they'll say, but they come up with recommendations about changing grass, changing grades on ponds, removing ponds, relocating things. There's no telling what will come out of their recommendations. The good thing is when they do have a recommendation is that we'll have funding to do it, to make the operating system safer. That's the entire intent, is to keep a deer and a hog and a turkey out of our operating environment the best we can. We all know there's no way it's going to happen completely, but we're going to do our best to minimize it. Beneath that is the actual runway extension in 2027. It's a $6 million project. It has FAA funding and DOT funding. The city share in this is also proposed as zero because 90% of the funding would come from the FAA. 10% would come from the DOT. So these are the two biggies out there that are actually for the implementation of the runway extension. But again, we do still have the hurdle up front of the feasibility study and how the DOT and the FAA react to that. And then the last three projects are the ones we added in red. I talked about a minute ago, funding the non-FAA share of the apron, doing the connections to W1, W2, and W3, and the access control system. And that's just the DOT CIP. That we could have a whole other discussion on the FAA, but all this is what's coming with DOT.
Thank you. That's amazing, amazing. So when is the FFA meeting? Or did I miss that?
It happens at the end of the year. It was probably 4 months ago, Judd. And again, remember, theirs isn't as complex because they don't call it 6 years. They really only care about 2. The only thing I will update you that's going on that's most significant about the FA right now is that me and Yule and Matt are trying to coordinate a discussion with the FA about taxiway E, which is the project over here behind Matt. It's for the Moody Road taxiway, where we have some active discussions going on with the FA about funding that project. But they're funding this year. They're going to give you a grant. And then for the FA, it's simply that project, and then hopefully taxiway Echo on the other side of 927, which will extend from Charlie all the way out to Moody Road. We hope.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
And did they act like they like you?
Like me? The ADO has been very, very supportive to you as a sponsor, and they've historically given the city of Palatka pretty much, think about it, almost everything we've ever asked for. We do have a challenge for taxiway Echo and the runway extension, though. Those are big challenges. But if you were looked at how much money the FA has put into the airport, in the past 20 years, it's $10 to $20 million. I mean, both runways, every single taxiway. I mean, if you think back 20 years ago, every piece of pavement on the airport, other than those taxiways in the back, everything has had a full high quality rehabilitation. So
And the infrastructure and the drainage.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to commend you, and Wayne did back some years ago when we talked about the extension. Did we want to move it or didn't? I think this is a credit. Remember, he spoke up and the number of us did. We can get it in the plan, even though it's further, that maybe we won't be here. It's an amazing process. For instance, with DOT, that 5-year work program, they're going to fund it. They're going to fund the 5. They do another one, which is a 10-year work program, which is outside. A lot of that is blue skies. When it gets in the 5-year work program, government at best, it's going to get funded. I mean, it's crazy. They can move it a little bit, but I commend you for putting it, and I think you continue to do what you're doing, which is the long-range plans, because the years go by pretty quick, and all of a sudden they pop up, and here they are. So, thank you. It looks great.
Well, the other thing I would say is that when you look at just the year that we're in, the changes that occur in the 12 to 24 month period, it's good that everybody here realizes that we all don't know exactly what's going to happen next year and the year after. You think you do, but you really don't. So we move some things around and we look and we juggle what it is. If we take money out of a project, in this case, we take out 800 here and we ask for $1 million a few years later, and the DOT is graciously grants it. I mean, there's a lot that goes in, as long as everybody's flexible. In most instances, when a project is in that 12 to 24 month period, you want to take advantage of it and you want to design it and build it. You want to get the most money possible. And then even if you're borrowing from your other project, the DOT fills you in on the backside. It's a fantastic system. Literally, our DOT is the best DOT in the United States of America. It just is. When I think of what we have in aviation this year, it's, I don't know, 325 million just to airports. I work in other states where that number is 20 million. We have 325. And it just makes it so much easier to do so many things on the screen that airports in other states have fuel farms, T hangars. It's out of the question. Even the small taxiways in the back, it's out of the question. Those things don't get funded. They're just trying to fund runways and taxiways, and everything else comes on the municipality that's operating the airport, but not in Florida. Tremendous things we can do.
Thank you.
That's really the tip of the spear. And when you can look at the runway, which we said, this board has said for years, that's the tip of it, because as you said, things will change. Once they see that, they go, oh yeah, we have to do that. Because that's what they're doing. I mean, the state and others are saying, well, where do they have commercial service? Where do they, and that's where they put the money. And where you know, it's the chicken or the egg. I just commend the board for staying consistent and for you and working the numbers. Good job.
Matt, what I missed? Okay.
Good work.
Good work. Everything you see in red, yellow, black, everything you see, he says good work. It's Matt's work. So he's, I'm the mouthpiece, but he's the machine. So thank you.
Thank you. Very, very good, Andrew. Thank you. Mr. Moore, I think you've got 15 minutes for number 5.
15 minutes. Well, in that case, guys, all that grant money that we started talking about, and with our airport, I believe one of the factors that we are so successful at, we generate pretty good revenue here as well. You know, we're certainly not, going through a struggle. So I'm showing here that the first calendar quarter, obviously our fiscal year quarter runs October, plus in October, but calendar year, we're showing January, February, March. For our fuel sales.
Trying, wait a minute, where'd it go, Sonny? I just clicked the mouse.
Yeah, it just needs to be scrolled.
I just need to scroll.
Minutes.
Third term.
13.
Can you get down here? Okay. Not scrolling for me, why not? There it goes. Is that what you want to see? Or the next one?
Yeah, keep on moving. So avgas, numbers there, we've been quite busy with jet and avgas, quite consistent over the last few months. Go to jet A, please. Jet A tracking, obviously a lot higher than in previous months. If you go down further, hangar rentals, fairly straightforward. Our hangar rentals there have not been any new facilities brought online yet. At the end of this report, I'll show you, or give you an update on the new hangars that we bring online. But we are going through punch list items. So once that comes on board, then we'll get additional $2,800, $2,900 a month for hangar revenues. Miscellaneous consists of rent fees, oil sales, lubricants, those kind of things. Continue. Now, this is the probably the ideal screen for you. Total revenues. So over the last few months, we've done $100,000+ a month in revenues. We have not been doing that historically. The drivers in a lot of this, obviously, we monitor the fuel prices, but also part of it is I believe, folks are coming here using our services more versus coming in and saying, hey, we don't need fuel or we don't need other services. And I think this is driving these numbers. What our goal is to, provide a high level service, offer service, and really try to promote a lot of that St. Augustine traffic, GA traffic to come over here. And they call it quite often, but in other areas as well. I'm not sure what it is about 28J, but folks love coming here from the region. It's a regional focus, and they're consistent. Our fuel prices have not been the most expensive. It has not been the lowest. We found that sweet spot and they are fine with it. And with infrastructure in place, I think that's driving that consistency for us. Next. This project was introduced earlier, and this is the fuel farm as well as the West T Hangar Group. What I want to share with you briefly is this may not be the biggest project that we've worked on, but it's going to be a very interesting one operationally. I believe it's about a 2-day turnaround to come in, mill, and repave. So we got this, obviously, the fuel farm, which is going to be a critical area. When that's offline, you're not generating anything. We also got to balance the customers that are set up in each taxi lane. So this is the spot for the new facility. So this is whiskey 9, whiskey 10. So it's going to take some interesting coordination. We may have to ask the customers, hey, you want to take your aircraft and put it on the ramp, for free, during the milling phase, but it's going to be a sensitive time. So you just kind of bear with us. I believe we're in the process of going through the bidding and those kind of things, but I think this is a fall project.
Yeah, depending on the contractor's availability, we should have the grant funds by then, so they could start into this year or beginning of next.
All right.
Yeah.
So very unique, but it's certainly something that's worthwhile.
It's definitely a stay inside your hangar or get out of your hangar. Don't think you're coming and going when we're milling and paving.
Right.
So you'll be very short term, but want to stay,
A big one.
or get
Is
out.
that all?
It is.
Every one of the hangars.
All
Something to do hangars over there.
Will be affected one way or another.
So whatever you do,
And when
make
is that?
sure no one can come in and legitimately say they didn't know it was gonna happen. And if you think you've done enough, you do say more.
Staying on the door.
The commercial hangars over there. How in the world are they gonna stay in operation? How long will it take? Are you gonna do it like?
Well, as Yul said, it's very, very quick. We plan on there being literally a 2 to 3 day turn on milling. We aren't gonna do it until we're really ready to mill, repave. And again, even for W1, hopefully they'll have all their maintenance work inside. They're doing all their maintenance work. They just stay inside with the doors closed. 3 days later, they open, they can taxi out. It'll be brand new.
Is it at all feasible for them to work at night?
I was about to bring, so Yule, and when we talked about the design, that's actually what we have in the bid right now for the fuel apron and, is this W1? This whole area plus that's proposed right now to happen at night. And the rest would happen during the day, and it's listed as maximum of 2 day, non-inaccessible.
Yeah. Yeah, balance, but again,
Pending weather.
we need it really bad. Next. Any other questions on? How many more minutes do I have left? 8 minutes, good deal. All right, so, update on new T hangers. So we're in the process of going through the punch list and doing punch list items. And the new target availability date is, May 1st. So. Absolutely. So, it's been a long time coming. People moving across. That's a Pasero request.
Well, Matt, which door?
Basically, there were some installation issues. There's some installation issues, which they're now fixing.
Yeah.
With some of the doors where they weren't operating properly, and that's part of this punch list. It's kind of caused a little bit of delay for them to fix these items.
You mean you think your door is actually open, John? You got a door that's all pretty and shiny.
I look like they would open, they might fall.
Not accepting it, and not paying for it until it's right.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
Jet A field truck, we've gone through the bid process. We have selected Titan Aviation, which ironically is our field provider, to provide us with a truck. So this is a lot more coming than our previous experience. Obviously, we struggled with the last process, or last product rather. So we're waiting on Titan to get back with us to kind of lay out the timeline for delivery.
Were they also the ones that you had the loaner truck?
Yes, they were.
Well, good, I'm glad they got the.
They spared us.
That hurts you.
Yeah. Since we last met, we had a couple of major inspections. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but an airport receive a license every year. We're not just here kind of hanging out and doing our thing. we have to comply. So FDOT came in, did the annual inspection, noted some obstruction items that we need to address. They worked closely with us, really laid out some detail on what was pleased with what we have here, and so we was able to pass that inspection. We're also had a separate independent inspection for the fueling operation. The airport, you know, that's your lifeblood. And they want to make sure that that fuel is clean. So we passed that. That's an annual inspection. I will tell you, the gentleman that's here, Robert White, has been here for, I believe, 11 years or so. He's had all the training. He says ownership of the fuel farm, and this shows because I had concerns when I started walking through, you know, the inspection with the inspector. It was impressive to see that, you know, this guy, our guy, the team member, really kept it together for us. So still a plug for him. Other than that, you know, we're having a good time here. You know, this airport has some serious opportunity. It has some serious opportunity. I can't speak for others areas, but specifically this airport. You know, just briefly, I was at a luncheon last week talking about the new city that's being built up the road, 21 minutes from here. And it's about 5 to 6 square miles size of the city. And it's right there at the Florida First Coast interchange. That's 21 minutes. So I expect to have some pilots in there somewhere that's going to be saying, I don't want to go to St. Augustine. I want to come 20 minutes down the road to Palatka. So that's exciting for us. That's why we need to certainly have some services and infrastructure to offer them. So I have been here over a year, and feels a little longer, but it's all good. You know, yeah, it's you know, the commercial side versus the GA side is absolutely different. You know, so but it's been neat to apply all my commercial services experience at Palatka. You got a lot of things that's going to be happening here that's positive. So thanks.
Thank you for your year too, sir. It's very nice. All right, we have, I think, move on. Does anybody have any 3 minutes? Anybody got any comments? Additional
I had
thoughts?
my comments at the beginning of the meeting.
And at the end again, huh?
Well, nothing else. Well, thank you all very, very much. Thank you. It's a wonderful meeting, and we need to stand adjourned.